Good morning. How's it going out there, folks? Good afternoon to a few. It is the Earthmaster out here on this Sunday, November 9th, 2025 date, 10:47 a.m. California time here. Latest activity shows we've got a swarm going on out here across the west coast with a 3.1 earthquake coming in right around the, well, it looks like it's at the Calaveras fault zone. It's outside of San Ramon, right on the Calaveras fault. It looks like a 3.2, been upgraded here. Started off with a 3.8, but we're getting a swarm of threes out here. Big time swarm going on. The Calaveras fault, of course, capable of producing some sizable quakes. This almost looks like it's all foreshock activity. We'll continue to watch it. I'm going to check back on that here just a little bit. Also a little bit of movement there across the southern end of the San Andreas fault. Super busy day. But the big story out here in Japan, if you were watching my video here last night, and technically, well, yeah, last night was the kind of the big update on it. We're talking about the potential movement here for larger activity in Japan because of a swarm that was going on, unusual amount of earthquake activity. These are just covering some of the fives from yesterday. There was actually quite a few more fives in there. And we're talking about the possibility of seeing something larger. Sure enough, right after I went to bed last night, we had a 6.8 earthquake coming into the Japan region. And that's a big one. That's a pretty decent sized earthquake. A number of fives as well. And then a more recent 6.0. Actually, that 6-pointer came in within the same hour as that 6.8. The magnitudes out here are looking a little scary because they're starting to remind me of foreshock activities to something much bigger, getting something similar to what we've seen up in the Kamchatka area earlier back in July. A little hesitant to think if this area was going to have a bigger quake or not, because back in 2011 there was a 9.1 that struck here, and it is roughly in the same location as the 9-pointer that struck in 2011. It's a lot of activity. I mean, it's very possible. I suppose we could see some further larger adjustment here around the region. But for now, 6.8, the largest, and then the aftershock so far a 6.4. But we're going to have to watch these magnitudes and see how they behave, because it could obviously be a sign of something bigger in the mix here. So that 6.8 striking just after midnight my time. No review from the USGS yet. This zone is historically super, super active. I mean, how many years have we had built up? We've had a little bit built up here since 2011. Got that looks like a dipping moment tensor there on that beach ball. And that's another thing I got to cover here later on is the definitions of those. But goodness, yeah, that's a lot of earthquake activity from yesterday. Kind of knew it was brewing. I mean, if you watched my videos last night, I was talking about the potential here of something bigger. These are very consistent as well with the depth of the earthquakes, around 6.2 miles, according to the USGS. And, if you look here on the Earthquake 3D globe, there's definitely a bunch more smaller quakes that are stirring up. This just happened after midnight, and these rings are already turning red, so I need to adjust that to account for all the multitude of quakes out there. That should cover it. With this case, that scenario that's going on right here across Japan, we definitely need to watch this area back over here as well. That's a Nankai Trough. I've been talking about that a lot. It's under quite a bit of strain, I'm sure now. But anywhere out here around the Western Pacific, man, there's just a bunch going on. Goodness. But the scary thing also is that we're getting some adjustment due east here along the west coast, California. That very reminiscent of the 2011 sequence when we were getting some activity there in Japan, some foreshock activity previous to the 9.1 back there in 2011. We were seeing some similar activity out here along the west coast, and then that 9-pointer popped, and then things kind of took a little break out here as far as that elevated movement across California goes. Once that 9.1 struck, getting a little eerily similar feeling So, it may just be our turn coming up here across the West Coast. All right, let's take a look here at this activity that's on the Calaveras Fault. Now, it's not. To me, it looks like it's just not along the Calaveras Fault. I'm seeing elevated activity north and down south here. It looks like just some West Coast adjustment taking place, and some of the areas that are showing the signs here are around the Bay Area. Hayward Fault quiet for now, but let's see here, man. Just 20. What do we got? 26 earthquakes. And it all stirred up from a 3.8 about an hour and a half ago. That's an unusual amount of aftershock activity for a 3.8. In fact, look at that second magnitude there. Some seconds later, about a minute later, 3.7. Bunch of threes in there, bunch of twos. There's another 3.2, three-pointer. Very well could be foreshock activity. Let's go see. I'm going to take a look here at the USGS map and see when we last had a decent event on the Calaveras Fault. Because the Bay Area obviously is it's a whole mess of fault systems that are capable of some big earthquakes, And the Calaveras Fault goes down a little bit as well. I mean, I should cover it a little bit. Probably going to be quite a bit here with 4.0s. Probably going to be a whole bunch, but we'll see if we can settle this out. Let's see. There's one that's sticking out like a sore thumb. 6.0 back from 1864. Hello. That was a long time ago. Is that when the last big one struck out here? 1864. Another 6.1. See, this is all on the... here's the Hayward Fault. And then it branches off here into the Calaveras Fault. There's two earthquakes here of decent size. 6.2, 1858. 1867. I'm noticing a pattern here. There's one Morgan Hill at 6.2, 1984. That is, it does look like it's on the Calaveras Fault, at least a segment of it. That probably didn't relieve the entire strain out there. Let me look at something here real quick. Fault, let's see if we can find that real quick. Just want to get a little information on that. And see what we got. It is a major branch here of the San Andreas Fault. Okay, so the last large event was a 6.2. Most recent moderate earthquakes were the magnitude 5.1 in 2022 and a 5.6 back in 2007. But I'm sure it could do more than a 6.2 out there. Yeah, so some... These guys are showing a 6.5 back in 1911 in the Morgan Hill area. It seems to be happening down in the southern end. South of Napa. There's that Hayward Fault connection with the Calaveras Fault. Some of these studies here, we'll read this because it's pretty important. I don't see any activity on the Hayward Fault for right now, but this article here definitely suggesting that that's possible. So it's been known for some time here that the Calaveras and the Hayward Faults merge in the South Bay region. That's kind of where we're at right now, where the activity is stirring up. Actually, it's stirring up in the north. Recent geological studies suggest that the Calaveras and the Hayward Faults may be even more closely connected horizontally deep beneath the surface, angling towards each other with depth until they become a single fault. That's not good. If true, this would have significant implications for the potential maximum strength of earthquakes on the Hayward. since this strength is determined by the maximum length of the fault rupture, and this rupture could extend beyond the juncture point to include some portion of the Calaveras. Here's a little recent assessment. In 2008 suggests that the northern Calaveras fault may be more likely to fail in the next few decades than previously thought. Here we are right now having a decent earthquake swarm. The strain is on out here across the west coast right now, folks, but it's also happening out here across the Japan area. Something's got to give. Something is going to give here, whether it's Japan or the west coast. This is the later activity. This is all movement following Japan's 6.8 last night and the 6.4 and a bunch of other 5s in there. So we got to be on guard out here across the west coast right now. Looking kind of on the serious side. Some movement along the Cascadia subduction zone as well, the southern end. There's one earthquake from this morning, a 2.7. A couple other smaller quakes in here as well from the last couple days. But the tremor map, let me show you guys the slow slip events here from yesterday, or underneath this area into the Cascadia subduction zone, deep down into it, underneath this range about 30 miles or 25, 30 miles or so. Now, last couple days we've been having some earthquake activity out here in that fracture boundary. I'm sure you guys could see it there just barely on the map. I wonder if I can, let's see here, gray streets. There we go. Here's a little bit better view. We've been having activity here just off of the Blanco fracture zone, which is this strike slip boundary. And when activity occurs on that, that's further pressurizing this area down here. That's where the general strain would be. And that's where we've seen an increase in tremor events. Those are slow slip events. And what this is telling me here, it's not relieving strain. That's a false, a lot of people tend to think that these tremors are relieving strain. Not at all. If anything, it's building the stress and strain out there across the locked area. The locked area doesn't relieve strain until it gets a big earthquake. This event right here is more upstream towards the locked area of the southern end. Notice how much closer it is. And we're getting some earthquake activity right within that zone. 2.7 from last night. The most recent, well, where's the most recent one? Yeah, down south here as well. The southern end of the Cascadia megathrust area. So it's literally, man, who's to say what's going to go first? Maybe it all will go at once. That seems to be the story that a lot of news agencies have been putting out recently here, that this whole segment of the West Coast could go. If not all at once, it could be hours or it could be days following each other. We could have the Cascadia go, and then a couple days later it could result in the San Andreas Fault going all at once. And it, we've been living in some quiet times here, right? Just living our lives and having a good time. But that could be coming to an end here when it comes to the earthquake activity. We got to make sure we're prepared. A big earthquake out here will definitely put a dent in our life out here. I live out here myself, so I know what can happen, and I'm definitely prepared. I am prepared if it were to happen right now. I wouldn't like it, but I'd be prepared. So make sure you have an earthquake plan, folks. Another earthquake out here near Patterson. That's off of the way off of the Calaveras Fault. Just getting a lot of stress out here, and it is at the northern end, where they're saying that it's most likely to fail in the next, they mentioned next few decades, but I don't think it's going to take that long. So 26 earthquakes, and it's, like I say, I look at this, I say, well, where's the main quake at? And so far, just the largest quake is a 3.8, but that, this doesn't make sense here to see this many threes for a 3.8. That's something you would see from a 4 or 5 magnitude or even a 6. So that's possible here, very possible that this is just foreshock activity on the Calaveras Fault right now. I'm going to put that out there. Further down south here, a little bit of movement here along the Brawley seismic zone. We're just off of it near the Salton Sea area. I do watch this because, that get a big enough earthquake down here, that could definitely trigger the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault, which has been locked and, ready to have a big earthquake for quite some time. It's been building up a lot of momentum. And this area, the southern branch, when it goes in its entirety, it will definitely take this extreme southern end. But the rest of the southern branch here will result in an 8.1 earthquake. That's just the facts. That is what's going to happen. The question is when. The rest of the country, Texas oil fields, normal. That's just what happens out there. One earthquake in the New Madrid seismic zone as well. That's another area we got to watch. 1811, 1812, seen a series of upper 7.0 earthquakes. Something like that today would be quite on the devastating side. But we got that teeter-totter effect going on right now, and it's stuck. Got to figure out who's going to see the bigger events. It's reminiscent here of 2011. We had activity stirring up here, and then back across Japan. Yeah, see, there's been a little bit newer adjustment up there across the Kamchatka area. Nothing there across the Nankai Trough for now, but I'm starting to wonder if that's where we're going to see this area's big next megaquake. It would surprise me if we've seen another megaquake right there in the Japan Trench. I'm surprised to see the 6.8 here this morning. It was looking like foreshock activity yesterday, and sure enough it was, but I don't know, 2011 was just like yesterday, geologically speaking, so it'd be unusual to see another megaquake out here, but at least along the Japan Trench. But you just never know. Let's see here. I'll take a look here at the GPS stations over here. And they got plenty. They do have plenty. Well, that's interesting, right? 2011 here. I guess this would make sense. That's a lot of. They did that island over. There was an island over there that moved some feet. Some dropped, some raised. It looks like this one dropped significantly back there in 2011. The concerning factor here is we're back up to where we were. That means there's a whole lot of slip going on there, a whole lot of accumulation of strain there across the Japan area. That's just one station there. This one doesn't even go back that far, but look how far we've gone up, since even 2014 here. We're going way up. This area of the Pacific Plate, man, the accumulation of slip is quite elevated here. It doesn't take I don't know where my other image went to here. I'll have to find it later. But yeah, watch this area. I mean, looking like we're back at a level seen previous to 2011 as far as the height goes. GPS says a lot of what's going on here. You don't get those elevated conditions on that vertical displacement unless something major is going on here with an extreme high slip rate, accumulation rate of strain. That's looking a little scary, but we do got to watch. There's still a remainder portion here of the Kamchatka Trench that has the potential to produce a mega quake, and it hasn't. The 8.8 up there in July ruptured a 500 kilometer length section here. So watch this area. Kamchatka, Japan, Nankai Trough. And of course the Bay Area. That's looking rather interesting here. So on a Sunday, you just never know. Far as any newer major activity goes, looks like a little bit of newer adjustment down here across New Zealand, just south here of the Alpine Fault, 4.1, and then up north you have a 3.3. Definitely got a lot of big time adjustment taking place out here, and it's starting to show, or it has been showing the last couple days here. I'm going to bring this down just a little bit. because technically I don't think, yeah, that's probably the last 24 hours or so on here, which is still pretty active. Pretty quiet over here across the Turkey area today. Some older quake activity from last night, including another 4-pointer, it looks like, in the area. That region has been swarming like crazy for some reason, and it's not because of just 2 6-pointers. I don't think that is going to, that's not the whole reason. There's something bigger brewing out there in that area. South America, pretty active, but that's common. One thing I've noticed today here is we're getting a lot of activity out across the rift boundaries. That normally sets all the plates into motion. Increasing strain out here. Let me go over to Yellowstone because I know they've been having a little bit of swarming going on. I noticed it last night. Just be cautious out there around the Bay Area today. There's the 6.8 and the 6.4, and then another 6-pointer in Japan. This isn't the Japan graph. This is the Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming graph. It just goes to show you that this map here is decent when it comes to picking up seismic waves. A lot of the maps look like, I'll show you what they look like. If you watch my channel, you'll know this is what they normally look like. Ever since their update here a couple months ago, you can barely see the 6-pointer signatures, barely see any earthquake activity that's happening, and that's just, that's kind of a bummer. They messed with the amplitudes like that. But there's still a couple graphs I can utilize, and I know Timothy has one too. I don't know where the site went. I normally keep it up here on the bookmark. We're on the taskbar up here, but yeah, so I don't even look at these maps anymore because you really can't see what's going on. This is a more well-defined amplitude map. You can see the local earthquake from last night that I was talking about, the 6-pointers, and then it does look like there's been a couple earthquakes there at Yellowstone this morning as well. Nothing big, but a little bit of earthquake activity there. I really can't stress it enough. We need to be prepared out here. Make sure you download that app. It's how many apps do we have on our phones? If you're like me, 100 or more. I got a lot of stuff that I like to look at. A lot of it's earthquake activity. The main one I think that's most important is going to be the MyShake Early Alert Notification System app. It doesn't cost anything. It's not spying on you. It does need your location, your proximity of where you're at, so that it can notify you when you're in a location where a big earthquake had just struck. For example, last year in December, we had a 7.1 out here off the coast there of Northern California. I live down here in Chico in Northern California here, Northern Sacramento Valley. And it gave me a 20-second notification there by the time I got that notification. It was about 20 seconds before I started feeling the the rolling motion from that 7-pointer. It actually felt pretty strong here in the valley. That's one of the more stronger ones I've felt in a while. Going to be less in terms of the time that you're going to get as far as that warning goes, but I think it's worth it. I really do. When your life depends on a few seconds, I think it's really important. Or it's just, you got to make sure you're in a good spot if you can when an earthquake hits, or at least try to get to a good spot when you get that notification. So just be prepared, folks. A lot going on out here. Last 30 days of activity, not so much there on the Calaveras Fault. The Hayward Fault has had a couple different swarms. But they're saying now that this more than likely is linked together. There's, you can see where it links together. Here's the Hayward Fault. It kind of ends here, but it really doesn't. It's joining the Calaveras Fault down here, and they believe it's connected underneath horizontally, which would mean that this is, it's capable of producing a much bigger quake than what we've seen historically there along the Hayward Fault and the Calaveras Fault if this thing decides to go all at once. But this activity is at the northern end. There's a Concord Fault here. Northern end is right where that activity is stirring up right now. and it's a dandy. These could very well be foreshocks of something bigger, folks. You know, populated areas of San Ramon. Hayward's over here on the Hayward Fault, but even if you had like a 6.1 or upper 6 that this northern area can produce, that would be a decent sized quake out there, highly populated. So look at the population density out there where this swarm's stirring up. Yeah, crazy, crazy day. Let me get rid of that population density. That's what I was trying to do. We'll give a quick glance at this here towards the end of the update. I want to look at the space weather activity here real quick. And, you know, surprisingly, look at that X-flare last night again. Goodness. It's just happening. Where was that X-flare at? That was the X 1.79 from 4274. And that's a sunspot I was talking about last night, directly facing us, right? It's probably a little bit more. Hey, look right here. Kevin got it. He linked up the official site that I've been using. It was stuck like that for the longest time, showing an older image there from like 2 months ago. But hey, he's updated the link to the newest, latest imagery. And I think, well, I got this information here from Timothy here, our moderator on the channel. So looks like the information sharing is getting around. That's good. But that's the latest imagery. I no longer have to click on the direct link to the latest imagery. That's good. And look at that. That's still a dandy of a system out here. That's super complex. Not really too worried about these over here anymore. They're starting to fade and stretch and just, you know, fade away. That's what they're doing. Same for this area. This sunspot directly looking at us produced a decent X flare. More than likely, that's going to hit us dead on with that the plasma cloud here. That won't be a miss this time. Let me go over here and see if I can find the well, Kevin's got one here on his YouTube channel, but I don't want to click on that. Either way, it does look like there was a coronal mass ejection that was shot off from the X 1.79 this morning, directly facing Earth. We should see the effects of that here within about 48 to 72 hours. Let's go see if the Space Weather Prediction Center has put out anything on this. It is definitely a busy day. Busy day, and it could get busier. The 14th. Let's see here. Earth in the green, Sun in the yellow, stereo A up here in the red. That's not Mars. Yeah, look at that. Pretty dense shot of plasma there, along with some high-speed solar wind stream from that X-flare this morning. So it looks like the peak of that's going to come in on the 12th UTC time there at let's see this. Let me see if Kevin's got it up here. This is just for, I don't think that's going to be it there. This is just for the high-speed solar wind stream, I believe. 80% G2 class storm. We'll have to check back on this when more information becomes available for that. But with it, you know, again with the sun, this is an old image here from SDO, so that is not good. That is not a good link. Yeah, I'll have to look in on that later. Just wanted to see if I can see the X-flare here this morning. Nope, doesn't cover that time zone, so it was have to go back a little bit. Anyway, yeah, crazy day, Crazy, crazy day. No major coronal holes facing us. That's one thing. But we're seeing a lot of earthquake activity ramping up here last night and this morning. Probably about the time when that X-flare hit. So the X-flare threat will continue here, folks, as I've forecasted here from last night. It's definitely super complex. I'm keeping mine at 35%. These guys got theirs at 25. That's the official site, but I look at these. I know all about the polarities of the sunspots and how they work and what they can do, and they can do further X-flares. So I'm keeping the elevated threat up there. 70% chance there for M-flare activity. And we'll check back on the arrival of that CME as we get a little bit closer, but that probably shot off there pretty quickly, so it'll be here in about 48 hours or so. Quick glance at the next close approach asteroids to the planet. See if anything's stirring up on this map. Let's see, millions of miles except for this one here. Newly discovered 2025 47-foot house-size asteroid there, but that's still at a good distance and definitely without doubt the way out there outside of the Earth-Moon distance, which is on average 239,000 miles. So nothing in that department for now, which is good. Quick glance at the Storm Prediction Center for severe weather here at the surface level. Got a marginal risk out here across the extreme eastern portion of the country along the coast for some wind and maybe a little bit of hail threat. No tornado threat today. And the weather models are still looking good for next week, or this coming week, I should say, for California, getting in on some precipitation. Southern California going to get the tail end of it. That's the GFS model. And then maybe another one. Ooh, look at that. Decent there for the following week. But the storm door is definitely open. That's the GFS model, the ECMWF model. Let's check this out today, see what we got. That's a little bit more promising. Wow, that is an incredible heavy band of precipitation there through the Sacramento Valley. If that holds true, that will make me very happy. Not because I want it flooding, I love rainfall. And the ground is super dry, so we need it. But one thing I'm noticing here with the GFS model is that Southern California is going to get some decent precipitation from this very first system as well. The GFS was not showing that. The ECMWF model is. So. And then more rain behind that. So we'll definitely check back on that as we get a little bit closer. For now, folks, I do think we need to be on guard. Watch California, the West Coast. Excuse me. Hawaii. Did it erupt yet? Let's go see. All right, Kilauea Volcano. Deformation data here. I just want to look at this first, and this will tell me if we've erupted. We have not. That is a long duration event in terms of accumulation of magma. It's taken a lot longer than the previous ones here. What that means? Well, it's possible it could have something to do with the inflow there, or it could have something to do with maybe a little bit of loss of magma somewhere else away from the summit. Maybe it's trying to find a different course from where it's been erupting the past 35 episodes. But we'll watch that because it should be popping at any second here in terms of eruption activity. Come on, let's see here. Got some overflows going on. It's just gradually just spilling some stuff out on occasion. Let me go back over here to the update and see what these guys are saying. No new update yet, so it's just having these overfills or overflows, or what they're called. And this was put out here on the 4th, so it's a few days old. But we should see an eruption again, folks, pretty soon out there at Kilauea Volcano. Watch the Bay Area, folks. Watch the Calaveras Fault. A whole lot going on here. I'm just going to screen capture that for my reference here, and then we'll just call it good. But that's a crazy amount of earthquake activity. And then, of course, we got the Cascadia up here showing some stress and movement as well. Just be on guard. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later. I have a feeling it's going to be a busy day. I'll be off and on here on the live stream and just kind of in the computer room the majority of the day. It's supposed to be about 80 degrees out here in Northern California today, so I'll be outside a little bit, but I think most of the day I'm going to be in here watching things. Have a good one. We'll chat you guys soon.